So let's talk about the 9 forms and what I learned through the journey of these podcasts with theologists, tantrics, um, yogis, bhaktas. Focus on one, everything comes to you. But if you focus on everything, nothing comes to you. Life force, as we call it, the same life force, the chi, the prana shakti which is within us, in this tree, within you, life force has created everything. Today is the 9th day of Navratri, and I'm here in this beautiful Shakti temple. I think with an ancient banyan tree right behind me. I'm at this location because I thought what would be a better place to talk about the learnings that I've had in the last couple of episodes or last couple of podcasts about the 9 forms of this goddess who we pray to in this temple. Shakti, the feminine, the nurturing, beautiful, loving consciousness or energy that we celebrate in our culture. You know, Ashok Mishra, the renowned Indologist, also theologist, who came on the podcast, said that it still remains a mystery how in our culture, for 1,000 years, without actually writing down the Vedas or the Puranas or Upanishads, it was carried forward from generation to generation without it losing its purity. I think one of the reasons, in my opinion, one of the reasons that happened is because our knowledge, may it be the Ayurveda, the medicinal science, or uh, Rig Veda, or different forms of Vedas, our knowledge was always recorded using 3 techniques. One was story. Today we know that if you have to memorize something much easier, you can just remember it. You can just make up a story out of it and you can remember it. It's one of the most famous techniques in education technology, edtech. So, one is stories. The second is symbolism, using universal symbols to represent larger things, like the color blue that represents space, empty space or sky, something which feels as large as space or sky. It doesn't mean that somebody is actually blue in color, it just represents the largeness, like the sky. Or maybe we used terse verses. Now, what is terse verse? It's something that is a challenge for your brain to understand. Like, for example, I heard somebody once come up with a terse verse saying, a fish that flies and is made of rock. It's just a funny example of how this is done. So, at first, your brain will sort of crack open. It'll just, it'll hit your brain hard. A fish that flies that is made of stone. But after a lot of thinking, a fish, that means something that floats, that flies, which means it's in the sky. Now, what is it that floats is in the sky and is made of stone? In the sense, it's non-sentient. Cloud. This approach of breakdown is very interesting in our tradition because once you break down something like this, it's very tough to forget it because you put a lot of energy into breaking it down. And then there's also poetry. Poetry is also something which is very impressionable to the mind. So, retainable by the brain, impressionable to the mind, and very easy to remember by the memory. Our rishis in our tradition, we call them the seers. So if you actually go by the definition of a rishi today, that would be a scientist, somebody who dwelled deeper into reality, what this is about. So they recorded this information that they found or they came across in poetry, stories, and terse verses pregnant with meaning. So our entire tradition, all the forms, all the idols, everything maybe is just waiting there to be understood. So let's talk about the nine forms and what I learned through the journey of these podcasts with theologists, tantrics, um, yogis, bhaktas. Let's explore. So this, if you've not watched the other podcasts, you can get, the milk out of it. You can milk it out, or this would basically cover all the highlights of all those podcasts, or this can also serve as a reference point for you to go back and watch those podcasts. So the first form of Mother Goddess is Shailaputri. Shaila means peak of anything. You know how when you are at the peak of a performance, maybe singing when you sing, or maybe the peak of fear, or peak of grief, when you just want to burst out crying. You might have experienced this state where your mind is just blank and you're calm. So, one form of Mother Goddess, or one form of this nurturing, feminine, beautiful energy in this world, is this experience that you have in the peak, Shailaputri. And that's why commitment is also attached to it. The peak of commitment that you can take up. That tomorrow onwards, this is what I'm going to do. And let me just share my experience around that as well. When you take up a commitment with peak intensity, right? I think Kabir Das said this, that if you focus on one, everything comes to you. But if you focus on everything, nothing comes to you. So sometimes in life, when you take up a commitment with that peak intensity, that this is all that's going to matter in my life, I have experiences in my life that everything else starts coming to you. All the other things which you were putting so much effort and hard work for just comes rolling back to you. And this celebration of this first form of divinity is a reminder that you have that power within you too. The peak experience. Second is Brahmacharini, the virgin aspect of consciousness, the virgin aspect of this energy. Everybody has this experience that, or we can also say infinity or the virgin aspect. Everybody has this experience that, there is, even though our hair has become thinner over a period of time, or our eyes might have, now you have to wear specs because they've lost power or gained power, or our muscles have changed, depends on if you've been hitting the gym or not. Our emotions keep changing, and our thoughts anyway, millions of thoughts. But there is something within you, if you have experienced, like, if you ask yourself, there is this core of you which has never changed. And as well, a lot of people say that, weirdly, I am 42, but I still feel like I'm 18 or 20 inside. So there is something in you that's not changing. And when something is not changing, it's ever fresh. It's a simple logic if you think about it. So this, in our tradition, this aspect of us that we call infinity, which is inside us. And just to give you an example, infinity might surprise you. Like, this is a camera that is recording this. There is a distance between me and this camera. But if I add a rule that instead of me walking up to this camera, and suppose I walk up to this camera, there's a finite distance. Now, if I had a rule that instead of walking up to this camera, every time I walk the distance, halfway I stop. So I'll go half the distance, stop, half the distance, stop, half the distance, half. And like this, I can go infinity. So, in one sense, there is infinity hiding in a finite distance also. So, in our culture, we believe that there is infinity in this non-changing aspect in us. The shunya, the zero, is the infinity as well. I'm not claiming that, but it tends to be the direction that, or we can say there is shunya and infinity both within this one thing, which is non-changing. So when we in our life move towards this direction, move towards infinity, it doesn't necessarily mean chaste. It just means that you're moving towards that. It's brahmacharini. Then we have Chandraghanta. Chandraghanta is beauty. It's the beautiful, positive energy. A lot of times we think that beauty is associated with object. Now, for example, if you go to a mountain and you see, wow, what a beautiful mountain, and you're just standing there in front of that ginormic piece of land, which is elevated and makes you feel that way as well. And you look at it and you feel beautiful inside you. The mountain might remain there after a month, but the experience of beauty looking at the mountain might go. Which means that the experience of beauty and the object is not. The object might trigger that experience of beauty, but the experience of beauty is within us. And that's why he says Satyam Shivam Sundaram. That aspect of us where we feel beautiful inside, that's actually not attached to the external object. After Chandraghanta, the positive energy, and also the story of Chandraghanta, you can listen to that full story in the podcast, so I'm not mentioning there. But it also is associated in some interpretations as shooing away the negative energy. As our tradition is full of interpretations, and let's keep that door open always. After Chandraghanta comes Kushmanda. Kushmanda is also, now in the stories it is denoted as the universe, creator, the creator of the universe, or the seed energy of everything. What that means is, now this will go into tradition and this will go into lores and folklore. So what I would request to you before listening to this part of it is read up a bit about it, and then you would understand, the subtlety of it that I'm talking about. There is a belief that this thing called Prana Shakti. Now, when I'm saying Prana Shakti, it is Shakti, which is energy, which is power, force. And there are forces like air is a force, or fire is a force. You can say it has a force, it moves. But this thing called Prana Shakti is considered in many traditions across the world to be spiritual energy, which is within us. And this is also what you feel that raises when you go to a temple, like right now. When you go to a temple, you feel a positive. A lot of people feel a positive up. That's your Prana Shakti increasing. And that also increases with meditation, that also increases with pranayama, a lot of these techniques. So in the Chinese tradition, there's a lot of speculation about that the word Qi in Kung Fu, and the Qi is actually Prana Shakti. Is it the same thing? So in our tradition, we say that this Prana Shakti is also the seed, or the creator of the whole universe. Life force, as we call it. The same life force, the Qi, the Prana Shakti which is within us, in this tree, within you, life force has created everything. And not that. So I know that mainstream science is about the Big Bang Theory, and also, going from a quantum physics point of view, there are many theories about how the universe came into conception. But from material to material. But from a spiritual point of view, we say that there is life force and then there is material existence. So this prana shakti is actually very powerful, is what they say, right? And I think in a lot of movies you might have seen, they use the power of their chi to do things. But I'm not just going into magical, mystical areas here. Even when you do just simple pranayama, right? Your energy uplifts. Or when you go to a temple, you're having a bad day, your energy uplifts. This prana shakti, this also helps us. This is one of the forms of Divine Mother, one of the aspects of one of the sides of Divine Mother that we celebrate in our tradition. So, prana shakti. And right after that comes Kushmanda, comes the next form, which is Skandamata. Skanda Mata. This is the only form which is Mata, or the mother energy. So, in our tradition, we say that Skanda Mata, or is considered as the mother of all techniques, also the mother of all arts, the mother of different disciplines, the mother of crafts. So, we pray to this guiding mother to guide us into knowledge and skill so that we can excel in life and move forward. Now, goddess Katyayani stands for power and strength. In fact, she holds a sword in one hand and a lotus in the other hand, also symbolifying. So, lotus in a tradition, like you see Brahma on a lotus, thousand petal lotus, in a lot of areas also symbolifies brain or intelligence. So, maybe this I'll add as my outlook on it. Maybe it shows intelligence with power, intelligence used with power. Because intelligence is actually what leads to a lot of power in the world. What is power? Power is nothing but influence. We say politicians have power because they have influence. When you have a weapon, it has influence. When you have words, it has influence. So this is celebration of this form also reminds us that intelligence and the different kinds of power that is there in our life. In fact, this form is sitting on a lion and she is also known as Mahishasuravardhini. If you go into the depth of what Rakshas Mahishasura is, then you will also understand. Also, very beautiful thing about our culture, all the demons which are depicted in these stories, right? They're actually negative qualities and not actual persons, like laziness or self-doubt. One of the most beautiful stories is of Madhu Kaitab, right? Madhu Kaitab are actually craving and aversion. So you have aversion towards this, you have craving towards that. This part of you, it doesn't let you analytically and logically think about things in a situation. You know that you have to study for an exam, but you have so much craving that you watch TV. Everybody does it, I did it. Madhu Kaitab was born out of Vishnu's ear. What does that mean? It means that it is usually born by hearing. When you hear a lot about this and that, you have craving or aversion towards the subject. And Vishnu fought them for thousands and thousands of years, but they couldn't be, defeated. And then Mother Divine was invoked. And that beautiful, nurturing, beautiful divine energy, the spiritual energy in us, when it gets awakened, all the craving and aversions, they get washed away. Like what happens during Navratri. So, lot of these, like Shumbha Nishumbha, again two demons, meaning self-doubt, right? So the stories are out there. This will end up becoming a 1 hour podcast if I go into it. So that's why I'm keeping it short. You can go check it out. Shumbha Nishumbha, they are basically represented as self-doubt and how to beat self-doubt. There's a beautiful video of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar on YouTube on this. You can just check it out. It's very beautiful. So Katyayani. And then comes Ma Kalaratri. Now, Kalaratri. Ratri is that which is very comforting to everybody. No matter what disease or no matter what inner struggles, inner demons, or whatever you're going through in your life. A Ratri gives comfort to all. The person who's craving, the person who's suffering, and the person who's feeling bad, sad, everything. Ratri is compassion. Ratri is comfort. This is another form of energy, aspect of Mother Divine that we celebrate on the 7th day, Ma Kalaratri. And there's a beautiful podcast which was recently done. In fact, the last one with Ekta Bajaj, who's written a book called The Voice of Kali. You can check it out. It explores Ma Kalaratri in depth. Ma Kali. But couple of things that I can add that I think you'll not find in that podcast is how we always depict Kali as with the tongue out. The tongue out also stands for silence. That Ma is silent. And that's also explored on that podcast, that this form of goddess is so loving. The skulls that you see, it represents different kinds of intellects which are there. Somebody thinks like this, somebody thinks like that. It represents that one aspect of consciousness or that one form of energy, Kali, which goes beyond all intellects, beyond the mind. And you see Katawa Hath, right? Such a fierce form. Why would anybody pray to it? There's so many hands. It shows effortless. I think it's called Karma Siddhi. You can check it up. All these words can be checked. Googled or found. Where effortless action happens. Kalaratri. And finally, we are here today in this temple. This temple is a Shakti temple, for which we also do Chandi Homa, which is Maha Gauri, the energy which is everywhere. The same energy I am, this camera is, that child is, this temple is, the camera person is, you are. The same energy, right? The same atoms, the same gluons, the same energy that flows everywhere. Or maybe even subtler than that, the deeper energy also. The same energy that flows through everything, Maha Gauri. And finally, I close this series with Ma Siddhadhatri. This is a very famous one, right? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna Bhagavan says, Karmanye vadikarase ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbu sangotsva akarmani. That means you have the right to work towards, you have a right on your actions, but not necessarily the result. Like, I'm creating this video, I have a right on creating this video, but I don't know how many people are going to love it. The result is never in my hand. Actually, in this Navratri, it is celebrated this form because Siddhadhatri is that form of feminine energy, that form of consciousness, that form of mother who gives results, who has the power to grant results. But it's not in your hands. So we celebrate this form by saying, please, we I pray that all my actions create results, beautiful results, as long as they're good intentions. It's such a beautiful journey to record these podcasts on these 9 nights. Do listen to all those podcasts when you find the time. We go into such depth, and from different perspectives. Tantra perspective, yoga perspective, a person who's a 4th generation descendant of the oldest yoga school in South India. Very credible speakers as well. Theologist perspective, historic perspective, a bhakta, a devotee's perspective. It's very beautiful, all these podcasts. Do check them out. And listen to Antaraag. Now let me just enjoy this temple. Happy Navratri.